Hi, everyone. I'm Jill, your inner healing coach, and today is our fifth episode of learning from coaches that are trauma informed. And I'm excited that you guys get to meet Clemen. Let me tell you a little bit about her before she starts to answer some of my questions. So, Clemen is an intuitive trauma informed coach. She works with women with complex trauma and specializes in family and relationship related traumas, being specialized in narcissistic abuse. And that's how we met. We met through our training that got us here. So welcome today, Clemen.
Well, thank you very much, Jill. It's really a pleasure to be here with you and to share the message of hope for many women. Thank you very much.
It. Yeah, that's exactly what we're going to do today. We're going to turn on the hope, ladies who are out there watching. So get ready to be hopeful by the time that we're done talking.
Yes, absolutely.
So the first question that I want to dig into that really opens up the conversation and what I've asked everybody is, tell me what brought you to being a trauma-informed therapy coach?
Well, I have been struggling most of my life with toxic relationships with narcissistics and psychopaths. And I realized that since I was 18 years old, I have been living in relationships with psychopaths. My first boyfriend was a psychopath. And after that, I got in every toxic relationship I could. I got married twice with narcissists. And now I am almost 51 years old. So after 30 years of living in hell, right, I realized that that was not a life to live. Something happened in my life with my discard from my husband, and something shifted inside of me. And I said, this is not a way to live. This is not a way to live. There is no woman in this earth that deserves to live like that. So I make like an inner talking to myself, and I realized that after 30 years, no one told me that narcissistic abuse existed. No one told me, no one prepared me for this. So that's when I realized I need to do something, because I have a daughter, I have lots of friends who are dealing with the same. And that was a really, really life-changing moment when I realized that most of my life, I had no idea I was living under the abuse. No one told me, no one prepared for me. And I want to show the world, I want to raise my voice. I want no women to live what I lived.
Isn't that a powerful thing to be able to say that? Like, I just felt really good just listening to you, because I've had many conversations lately, and that's the exact point I'm hearing from a lot of people, that I don't want anybody else to go through that. And if we each held in our story or each held in our journeys, we wouldn't be able to be the catapult for someone else to get free. And even though what you went through was really hard, and 30 years of your life of living that way since you're 18 years old and everything you've gone through, what if, this is just a question that I've been sitting with for the last 48 hours, Clemen, is what if we reached them when they were really young? What if we started to have these conversations and to do this kind of education so that young men and young girls understood mentally the four basic tenets of what you and I talk about all the time is, I'm good enough, I'm worthy, I am important, and I am lovable. And we started to explain what that really meant. And I think that that would shatter all the confusion that's out there in the world, which is totally off topic, but would shatter all the confusion out there of the gender identity mess that's going on right now. Because if you know who you are, and you know you're good enough, you know you're worthy, you know you're important, you know you're lovable, you're not looking for that from external validation.
Yes, Jill, when I first started my coaching journey, I wanted to help older women like myself. But through the months, I have been changing into exactly what you just said. I want to help the younger generations. Because if someone had told me what I know right now when I was maybe 16 or 17 years old, my whole life could have been different.
Same.
Yes, and so that's what I want for my kids. That's what I want for my country, and that's what I want for the world. Because one thing I also realized when I started healing myself and when I started this healing journey of coaching, I looked at my daughter, I looked at my daughter's friends, and I realized all of them. There's no single one, either boy or girl, that haven't had some kind of abuse in their life. Young girls are having relationships with narcissistics at younger ages, maybe 16, 17. Boys do not know how to treat a woman. The woman do not know how to treat themselves. I see a lot of younger generations that do not want to have kids. And I completely understand them, because if they have been in abusive families, abusive relationships since they were born, or even before they were born, if they saw their mother being abused or their father being abused, why does someone wants to have kids? I
Why do
mean,
they even want to get married? It's even the fracture of
yes,
society, because why do I want to get married? Why do I want to give myself to someone? Because how do I know they're not going to turn into this evil person,
yes,
right?
yes, right. So that's what I am interested right now in, healing younger generations
I
and
think it's so
making,
important.
yes, yes, it's so important because we can heal, and we can heal from the bottom up, so they
Yeah,
can
because
have
if we're
really,
getting them too late, right, you're
yes,
just, I agree. We need to help women that are our ages because we're all the ones coming out of it, right? We
yes,
finally have had enough after 15 years, 20 years, 30 years. We finally had enough. We all need help at our age group. But it really, the answer, I feel like, this is just something like I said, for the last 48 hours, I've been really praying on it. It's the younger generations. And I feel like, and this, because you're also a Christian, you can sit with me on this. I feel like that's where the devil goes. He goes after the children, because if he can get them at such a young age, then he knows what's going to happen to marriages and the statistics of marriages. He knows the fracture that's going to be on children and marriages and family. He knows. But if we start to talk to the children about what co-regulation means, about what it means to have a true loving relationship, what it means to have healthy arguments and disagreements, what it means to heal that inner child inside of you that says those four basic beliefs, right? That fracture the human soul. If we're able to start to talk to them at a very young age, because guess what? A lot of the things that kids are learning in school today are not going to help them have a healthy relationship, a healthy marriage, or be a healthy parent.
yes, of course. I completely agree with you, Jill. I also resonate with your words when you say that the devil goes with younger kids. Absolutely right. Because if those kids do not know a real love from their father or from their mother, they're going to repeat the story. I have been talking to my kids and to some kids also about what intergenerational trauma is,
Yes.
because I found myself repeating the stories of my grandmother or my great grandmother. And I have been talking to them so they can break the cycle, so they can look back upon their generations and see what happened in the history of our family, of our country, and to stop that cycle, breaking the violence cycle. It's very important for them at younger ages.
Yeah, and it's not
They,
just your country, right? It's our world, because we can see it
yes,
happening around the world. Like when I was a teenager, so I'm 50, going to be 55. And when I was a teenager, I don't remember hearing about sex trafficking or human trafficking like it is today, right? So it's grown on this like grand scale. And I didn't hear about pornography like we hear about it now. It's on a grand scale. It's in every single person's hand, every child's hand, anytime that they want, right? And we know the
right.
statistics are now that these kids are getting it and watching it as young as 10 years old. Well, I know, and you know, that that's traumatic. So even if they didn't see evil in their home and they had really amazing parents who were extremely loving and nurtured them, did all the things, the moment that their brain took in that evil, trauma happened. And now we have traumatized children that are watching pornography, and that's their basis for relationships. That's their basis for how they're supposed to treat women. That's their basis for how they have to have sex, that they think about sex, how they think of ownership of a woman, and she's supposed to do whatever I want. And I just watched a video yesterday. It's so fascinating that we're talking about this. That's why it's so good that we pray before it, because God rules it.
Yes.
But yesterday I watched this really short video on a man who was in, he was covered so you couldn't see his face. I forget what it's called when they disguise them, right? Like they disguise them in the video.
Yes.
But he's someone who cheated on his wife. He had watched pornography, and he was explaining why he did the things that he did. He said, because if I go and pay a hooker, a prostitute, she's going to do everything I saw on the pornography. My wife would never do that, and I never asked her to do it. Well, thank God he's not hurting his wife, right? That was the first thought. Well, thank God you're smart enough that you're not going to hurt your wife. But how disgusting and depraved is the human soul that you believe that you should go outside of the marriage and perform what you've been watching on pornography. And that's where I see this break in our society, because even if you have really good parents, which it's not your fault that you got into pornography and you got into this narcissistic belief that you're going to get whatever you want, and I'm going to control and manipulate to get whatever I want, it's actually the pornography that changes the brain to make them believe that they have this power that you really don't have. So if we don't get the children younger to stop them from this cell phone addiction and what they're able to see on the cell phone, Clemen, I'm very concerned for our future generations, because
Yes.
what they're learning is so unhealthy. And of course, marriage gets attacked. Of course, parenting gets attacked. Of course, the fracture gets attacked, because they're not even taught what true love is.
Yes, you're right, Jill. And besides pornography, I am also really concerned about violence.
Yeah. The
Yes,
music industry.
violence. Yes, all the industry, the movies, and inside the schools. The schools are tending to normalize violence, because I have listened to many, talks at schools where they tell a kid that is being bullied, well, defend yourself. So now a kid that is being abused in school, it needs to defend himself through violence. And if that kid does not defend himself and go into a fight, then when he comes to his house, he got beaten by their own father because he didn't defend himself. So they are getting into a cycle of violence. Yes,
Yeah.
that's a terrible message, because it continuously traumatizes the kids, and the kids learn that through violence and through abuse, they can get what they want. And that violence is the only way that they can live a plenty life, a faithful life. And that is a terrible message for younger generations.
And that's where, when our conversation the other day, when you and I spoke about God, this is so amazing. Thank you, God.
Yes.
It's so true that, Clemen, that if the foundation is not God in everybody's life, and I'm not even talking about that you have to go be religious. That's not, I'm talking about everybody. There has to be some foundation of truth in your heart. You didn't just get here by accident. You didn't just get formed in your mother's womb by accident. There's a purpose for each one of us to be here. If you've never heard that, let that sink in. There's a purpose for us to be here. And as someone who's trauma informed, someone who's lived a life of trauma my entire life, we're all supposed to be here. Even through the trauma, there's a purpose and a plan that comes out of it. Did God want that for your life? No. Did God want the free will of every person that ever abused you and hurt you to do that? No. He gave us free will to choose evil or good. And he, in that time that we're going through that pain, is to get us through it. So that has to be your foundation, everybody who's ever watching this. That needs to be your foundation. He's with you through the pain. He doesn't want you to go through the pain. He doesn't want you to go through the trauma. He didn't allow the trauma and the abuse. It's happening because somebody in your life is depraved of truth. Truth is the only thing that sets us free. And children who are not grounded in that truth grow up in a lie. And there's another part of that. There's a whole part of society that's being taught, I still have to get mine. Well, if God doesn't give it to me, I have to go get it.
Yes, right.
And what does that do? That perpetuates more abuse, more violence.
Yes, absolutely. Is the cycle of violence, the cycle of abuse being repeated at younger ages. That is a completely terrible situation we're living all around the world.
I agree.
And yes, I agree. We need to start with younger generations, and we need to teach them, and we need to teach the schools, and we need to teach the teachers also, so they can look at the kids from a trauma-informed lens also, because
Yeah.
that's definitely the starting point for our future as a world.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear more people talking about trauma informed, right? Like right now, it's like a buzzword, trauma informed, because everybody wants to drop it to be relevant. It's not about being relevant. You need to truly understand the intricacies of how God created us. And the one thing that I wanted to ask you about, it's like one of the next things is, I know what you specialize in, but what surprised you most when you became trauma informed? And the next part of that question is then, Clemen, what do you feel that brain spotting training did for you? Because it was a monster shift for me how I looked at trauma once I understood the brain and how the nervous system is tapped to it. So could you answer that?
Yeah, sure. Well, what surprised me most when I became a trauma-informed coach is how can our system, our body is able to live so many years in a
Mm,
flight, fight, freeze, or fawn response.
mm-hmm,
I mean, what I realized and surprised me is the wonderful bodies that we have and how they work perfectly to help us heal from pain.
mm-hmm,
And nobody told us that.
mm-hmm,
Nobody
mm-hmm,
told us that we can live many years hurting ourselves because of our nervous system is living in a flight, fight, or freeze response.
mm-hmm.
And it also surprised me because of my family history. We had so many immune diseases. My father passed away from a kidney autoimmune disease. I have Hashimoto's, also an autoimmune disease. And 3 years ago, my daughter was diagnosed with lupus, also an
Mm.
autoimmune disease.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Oh, thank you very much, Yo. But I was really surprised that these autoimmune diseases are caused by living a lot of time in one of these responses of the body. The
Right.
body, it comes a moment when the body does not understand if the danger is outside or inside. And then the body attacks itself because we live in a continuously stage of fear, of danger. And that is something that people misunderstood because we tend to normalize that living in anger or living in freeze state or living in a false response is something normal.
Right. Like people who just get through life, like you hear people who are just surviving, right? And
Yes,
it's like a big thing, like it's almost normal, not normalized, it's almost like celebrated. Oh, you made it through
yes,
another day, you made it through another week,
yes,
like
you made it to
oh, good for you, you made it through. No, I don't want to live like that.
no. Yes, I think most people misunderstood and misunderstand that this is not a healthy way of living. We do not need to live in a survival mode. We need to get rid of all those responses because all of those are trauma responses.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And we normalize, we just say what you say, well, life is difficult, just made it through the day. And don't answer him, it's okay, he's having a bad day. And no, he's not having a bad day, he's an abuser.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You don't
He's
need to
choosing.
survive. Yes, you don't need to survive through the day. You need to live every day.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a really misunderstanding for most people
How did brain
because
spotting open that up
yes,
for you? Because I think that was like, for me, I only can speak for me. I feel like that was like the cherry on top that literally took the brain, everything that we learned from the trauma of the brain, it took it and it was like, like mind blowing.
yes, it was like an explosion. For me, brain spotting sessions are magical
Mm-hmm.
because I had so many memories that I didn't even remember I had. I had so many traumas that I didn't even realize they were traumas. I lived in a healthy family. My father, my mother loved me a lot, but I grew up with a lot of traumas, you know. I remember my mom always telling me, you need to grow up as an independent, self-sufficient woman, do not need anyone around you. And that's exactly how I grew up. I grew up without needing anyone. Even now, it costs me a lot to ask for help. First of all, I can be dying inside. I put a great smile in my face before asking for help. And with brain spotting, all those memories just appear. And it was, you know, like a picture, just looking at my younger years, like a picture, and then blowing up and exploding, and then just transforming into just memories. They were
Right.
not even trauma anymore. Now I have those memories and I can remember, but that doesn't cause me pain anymore. And day to day, I'm allowing myself to ask for help, to know that I am not alone, that I have a great team with me, and I can reach for help anytime I want. And that's
Mhm.
also what I want to teach younger generations, that they can reach for help.
Mhm.
They are
Mhm. Don't
not
be afraid to
alone.
speak up, right? Have a
Don't be
voice.
afraid to speak up,
Yeah, have a
because
voice.
I grew up most of my life shouting up, do not
Mhm.
speak. We never spoke about our problems in the family. We were
That's
supposed to
also,
handle, yes, we were
yeah.
supposed to handle our own problems. And that was a way of defining who we were. If you were able to solve your own problems, then I was worthy. No, that was a mistake. And with brain spotting, all those little traumas have been liberating. I have been being freed from all of them.
Yeah, brain spotting has been such an incredible gift. And I love doing brain spotting sessions with my clients. The transformation from the beginning of the session to an hour into that when it's ending, I just feel like, okay, God, that is just such a gift, because those of you that are listening, so what brain spotting basically is it's, sorry, there was somebody at my door. I was like, oh, brain spotting is so powerful because the way that our nervous system is made and the way that our brain is created, God did such an incredible job to protect us, that the most important part of how we feel is tucked so safely into our brain. But
Yeah.
the problem is that this part of our brain, which is our amygdala, which is where our fear, fight, and flight center is, that is what is sending off to our adrenals. That is what is attacking and causing problems to our pituitary gland, which then affects our thyroid, which then affects our gut, which affects everything in your body, your endocrine system, and everything. And the reason that I almost died from my thyroid disease, from Graves' disease that turned into Hashimoto's, was because I was in such a fight, flight, or freeze state for too long. My body couldn't handle it, and it couldn't handle any more trauma that was coming in. And I, at the time, didn't understand. But now, being 10 years removed from the last time when I almost died, because it's been 10 years to the almost to the day, I I see now how incredibly powerful the brain spotting is, because it allows the brain, the most important part of the brain, to say, I'm okay. Because it sends now to that nervous system, to the vagus nerve, you're okay. And then the whole autonomic nervous system can relax, and your parasympathetic part of your body can say, I can relax. I don't have to be in a state of fear all the time. And I don't have to think I'm running all the time. So that's how I feel about brain spotting, because I really want to just touch on autoimmune diseases. I think every single sickness, every single one, stems from some type of trauma, whether it happened to you in utero because you are born with fight, flight, or freeze, everybody, or whether your mother, when she was pregnant with you, had too much cortisol running through her body, which then sent too much cortisol in your body. You came out with too much cortisol. And if you weren't nurtured enough, if you weren't treated the way that you need to be treated, then of course your nervous system is already jacked up. And then if you have any other traumas after that, your nervous system just keeps tacking it on, and it's alive in the nervous system until you heal and release, so that you're no longer in dis-ease, so that you don't have a thyroid issue, so you don't have a gut issue, so you don't have all of these problems.
Yes, I absolutely agree with you, Jill. I also believe that most sickness come from a trauma,
Mhm.
either in childhood or recent. But yes, most diseases come from them because living in a flight, fight, freeze response is so powerful in the body. You know, the body really keeps the score. Our body is so wonderful that we keep everything that happens to us. And you know that our brain doesn't know if danger is real, if danger is a creation, or if danger comes from a memory. So what's really powerful of brain spotting is that it can turn that memory, that danger memory, into just a memory.
It locks
So
it in.
so we can teach our brain really when the danger is real and when the danger is only inside of me.
Mhm.
We can teach our brain that a phone call is not a life-threatening danger. No,
Right.
we can learn from that. And one of the things that I love about brain spotting, working with younger generations, is that they can really heal.
Quickly.
Yes, really quickly, because we as grown-ups has had lots of histories in our minds, and younger generations are free from
We
that
also
stuff.
play the story in our mind for longer, right? So the older you
Right.
get, you're believing the story of the four basic tenets that I spoke about. You're
Yeah.
believing them longer and longer and longer. So the story gets more painful and more painful and more painful. The older you are, the older and longer you're holding in that trauma and it's not released, the more alive your nervous system is to feel danger, even when there's no danger.
Yes, absolutely. So that's one of the wonderful things that brain spotting does. I love also brain spotting therapies, and I
Yeah.
use
Oh,
them a lot with my clients. The change in their faces, in their bodies is remarkable.
I love it.
Yes, I love it too.
What do you think that most people misunderstand about healing from abuse, loss, trauma?
Well,
What do you think?
I believe that most people do not understand and do not know that trauma can really be healed from the root. Most people go into talking therapies for many years without being really healed. And most,
Re-traumatizing
yes,
themselves.
yes, just keep re-traumatizing themselves because they do not know there are specific methods and tools to heal from the root. And also one of the great misunderstandings that I have found is that time heals everything. And what I've told my clients and friends is that time do not heal anything. Time
Nothing.
only time only hides
That's
deep
right.
inside our memories the trauma,
You
and
just
we
you
will
just
get
stuff it
triggered.
down. Yeah, you stuff it down.
Yes, yes. You know, I had a phone call from my one of my boyfriends in my late 20s, 30 years after that relationship, and I got really scared and triggered. And I say, well, it has been more than 20 years. I should have forgotten. And no, time only hides and makes stronger the trauma.
Right, because it's so alive in the body.
Yes, and also another misunderstanding is not asking for help
That they can do it on
because,
their own.
yes, thinking we can do it on our own, because that's what I thought also. I thought that while by reading lots of books, by listening to a lot of podcasts, I was able to heal myself. And no, we need help, but we need help from a trauma-informed coach
Yeah,
because we are
it's
the
so
only
important.
ones that can help, really help from the root, and to stop re-victimizing the victims or the survivors from abuse.
Yeah, because I think one of the biggest things that I'm seeing in this industry that's a little bit discouraging. I want people empowered. I don't want you to need me, right? Like, okay, if we need to work together for 3 months, maybe maximum, and then maybe you check in with me every once in a while. But after that, you shouldn't need me. You should be empowered in yourself to have the full ability to be your highest self, like God created us. And then when you have something that comes up, you go back to somebody that you feel safe with, to co-regulate with, to work through the newest thing that triggered something that you didn't know that was there, that you couldn't have worked on 6 months ago, a year ago, 2 years ago. And now it's alive in you again because something triggered it, like you said, 20 years later, that you then have to work on it again. But you have to find someone that you can safely co-regulate with to do that work. But you shouldn't be dependent upon somebody. And that's one of the things I don't like about talk therapy. You become very codependent on that therapist.
Yes, and you can be in talk therapy for many years.
Years, yeah.
Yes, I have worked with some clients that have been in talk therapy for maybe 10, 12 years.
Yeah.
And with a couple of Brainspotting sessions, they are rising, they're thriving.
Exactly. They start to thrive. I feel the same way. I mean, I made packages for my clients on my website recently, and the maximum that I have is 10. And the reason that I have 10 is because if I haven't given you the space in 10 hours through however many weeks it takes us to get through those 10 sessions, then I didn't do something right. That's how I feel. I'm not being mean to myself. I'm not putting myself down. I just know the power of validating the nervous system.
Yes, the power of validating the feelings and the emotions. Because, most therapists usually said to their clients, well, you don't love yourself enough if you don't leave him. And no, all of us love ourselves. So we are not staying in a relationship because we don't love ourselves. We stay in a relationship because we really don't know how to get out.
And you're
Because our
hopeful.
nervous system is stuck.
That's right. And you, the person, is a loving, normal person who wants to just love and be hopeful and love and be hopeful and love and be hopeful and forgive and be hopeful. But no, when you're around the person who's hurting you, everybody, you need to hear this. You can't heal. You cannot heal where you're being hurt, period. It cannot happen. So even if you need a time of separation, it's not about divorce. If you need a time of separation, you take a time of separation. If the separation doesn't make it better, then you need to stay separated and get divorced. And that's what people don't understand. They're so afraid to get away. But if you don't get away, you're never going to be able to feel in your body what it feels like. I hate to use that word over and over again, but you won't feel what it feels like in your body to be able to heal because you're so jacked up all the time. And when you're jacked up all the time, you're not thinking clearly.
Right, you're absolutely right, Jill. But there's also a very important part. Before you get out of the relationship, you need like an escape plan.
Yes.
Because there's almost impossible for a person who is inside the abuse cycle, inside of a narcissistic relationship, to just wake up one morning and say, oh, I'm going out. That does not happen.
Yeah, I'm not laughing at anybody. Just but it's like a funny thing to hear someone say because it's so ridiculous because people say it to us, right? Why don't you just leave? Why are you staying? Why'd you stay for so long? Didn't you realize, it took you 20 years to realize? And what I want to say to everybody out there, first of all, I think that's the hardest, meanest thing you can say to somebody that's in a spot of being abused. It's not helping them. It doesn't empower them. I'm going to go back to what I said before. We have to empower every single person to know the 4 basic tenets. You're worthy, you're enough, you're lovable, and you're important. And once you know those things, it doesn't mean that there has to be a race, right? It doesn't have to happen tomorrow. Your healing doesn't have to happen in my time frame in 10 weeks. I'm just saying to you that if it takes longer than 10 weeks for me to see progress in you, something's wrong in our co-regulation and something needs to shift and you might need to work with somebody else, because it's not about a race. It's not how fast. I want to really make sure you hear that, everybody. I'm not saying you have to heal in 10 weeks because it's a lifetime. I'm not going to be healed in 10 weeks. You're not going to be healed in 10 weeks, Clemen, right? It's a lifetime of constantly unlayering all the traumas, the little traumas, not just the big ones, all the little ones that our nervous system has tucked inside, like you for 20 years. It's so I just want everybody to be clear on that. I'm not saying you have to be healed in 10 weeks, but I need to see progress so that I can see as your coach that we're making progress co-regulated and that I'm doing the right thing by you. Because ultimately, it's not about me. It's about what's best for you.
Yes, absolutely right, Jill. And the healing or the recovery process, it's a lifetime process.
Mm-hmm.
We learn the tools, and day by day, we apply the tools in ourselves. So it's really important what you just said. We teach the tools to our clients, we coach them, we taught them how to use them, and we are guiding them in their own healing process. And I would like to add another tenet of the four, that is, I am not alone.
Oh, so
We are,
important.
yes, that's also very important for people out there to know that there are persons like you, Jill, like myself, that can help you. You are not alone in this journey. We understand you, we hear you, we feel you,
We
and we can
believe you.
help you. We believe you.
Yeah.
We have been there and we really believe you. We are in our own healing journey and we can help you heal. You are not alone.
And I think the other part too is it's okay to go through the states of denial, right? It's a grieving process that you have to go through. And you have to allow yourself the time to grieve that the parts of you that believe that your marriage, your relationship was something that it never was, or the person was going to be something that they never could be. And it's okay to grieve the parts that you were hopeful of why you stayed. Because the reality is 1 in 3 women are being domestically abused right now. 1 in 3. Out of all the women that are being abused, they go back on average 7 times. It's not for a lack of knowledge, everybody. It's a inability to see past the fear of what they're in. And telling someone to just leave and getting frustrated with your family member who won't just leave because you're part of their process of going back 7 times isn't helping them. And cutting them off because you don't want to be part of 7 times that they go back isn't helping them. It's reestablishing those 4 broken parts of them. And the 5th, which you mentioned, is you're really alone because I'm not sticking around because you're not doing what I wanted or how I wanted or what I believe is best for you. Every single person out there, you have to do in your timing. And as Clemen and I believe, you got to listen to God. You got to go back to truth. Because if you don't know truth and if you're believing lies, you can't get out. It's when you believe a truth and you know who you are that you can then take action, because God will give you the exact steps and when it's exactly the right time to do it in a safe manner for you and everybody else involved.
Yes, Jill, you're absolutely right. We need to trust. We need to trust that God is with us all the way, every day. And He is with our families and He is with our kids. And He is just guiding our steps.
Yeah.
We went through all this abuse so many years for a reason. I mean, I can see right now that there was no other way that I can learn what I know now, that I can find the abilities I have now, and to find my real purpose in this life. I was not a coach. I am only been a coach for recently. I have been all my life working in a 9-to-5 office, but I was never enough for me. I always felt that I was meant for something else. And now I know this is my something else. This is what I really love to do. And this is why God sent me into this earth.
And he didn't need us. And this is something that I want people to hear, because it's a very important distinction. He didn't necessarily need us to go through the trauma, everybody. Okay. He could have made Clemen and me and all the other women that we've met just be trauma informed, go and get certified and go through everything to be trauma informed. You didn't need to go through that. But because we did, which I think is extremely important, very important for you guys to hear this distinction. Because we did, we have an understanding that someone who had just gone and got trauma informed trained can't have. Because yeah, they can learn, but it's very different when you're coming from a compassionate standpoint to be able to love somebody in a co-regulated way because you know their pain without them having to talk about it. I don't need you to convince me. I understand. I don't need you to tell me all the details because I need to hear them all so that I can understand. No, I already understand because I've experienced enough trauma in my own life and enough abuse, enough invalidation to be able to co-regulate with you, where a person who never went through it could not do it. And that's why I feel like it was important that we have walked those shoes, that we have been brought to this place, because we can really help other people in a way that somebody who never went through it can have. You just can't have the same compassion.
Yes, and you know the word compassion, I love that word compassion, because yes, we are trauma-informed coaches, but we can see through the eyes of compassion, and we
Oh,
can hear
so
through the eyes
important.
of compassion, and that is so meaningful and so important, because then we will never judge anyone. We will always have love to share and knowledge to share
Mhm,
with other
mhm.
women that needs.
Yeah, and I also think part of compassion, what's really lovely about it is I'm not a victim. You're not a victim.
No,
They're
I
not
am
a
not a
victim.
victim.
Right. And once you become trauma informed, you take your power back. And that's what you're giving to the people that are watching this. This is what you get to understand is the more that you are informed of why you made specific decisions, why you stayed in that cycle, what really happened to you, then you are able to no longer point the finger at the person who did it to you because they're insignificant. They don't matter. It's you that now, from this point on, is making a decision on how you will now treat yourself and how you
Yes.
will allow anybody to treat you, because now you know. And it's my favorite saying, and everybody who's been watching my channel for 8 years knows, know better, do better. And that's the whole point. I didn't know what I know today. If I would have known what I know today, same thing as you. When I was 18, I wouldn't have made the decisions I did as a young girl. But I didn't know then. And I
And
didn't
it
have
was
people in
not
my
your
life
fault. Yes. And it was not our fault
that
to
we
not
didn't know.
knowing. We did our best with the knowledge we had.
Everybody
And we
does.
really need to praise ourselves and thank ourselves, because we always did our best with the
Mhm.
information and knowledge that we can.
That's right. And every woman that's out there, every woman that's out there, hear that again. Repeat it, please.
Yes, you need to really be proud of yourselves, because you are doing all that you can, all the lovable things that you can with the information and knowledge that you have. You made decisions with the information and knowledge that you had, and you did the best, always took the very best decisions that you could.
And when you didn't know. And that's what
Yes,
you need to forgive yourself for. And even when you reacted, I'm so glad we're going to end here. Even when you reacted in a way that you're not proud of today, you have to remember why you reacted in that way, because you had a live trauma in your body that was being re-traumatized by somebody in your life versus helping your nervous system to feel safe and peaceful. You weren't co-regulating with them. You were dysregulated and they kept you dysregulated. And when you're dysregulated, you mirror the actions and responses to the person that's dysregulating your nervous system. So even when you acted in a way that you're not proud of, even when you made decisions you're not proud of, you made decisions out of the best that you possibly could with the what was being done in your life at the time and with your knowledge to be able to make a better decision. But you need to really differentiate, everybody. Once you know and you're able to sit with that and you're able to start to work from hearing that I need to regulate my body, because once I regulate my body, all of a sudden the nervous system heals, the gut starts to heal, the thyroid starts to heal, the endocrine system starts to heal, the adrenals start to heal, the heart muscle starts to heal. And all of the negative energy that's in your body starts to get released because of the knowing, the validation, the being seen, the being heard, and the ability to forgive yourself. To forgive yourself for what you didn't know. And I've spent the last year forgiving myself for all the things that I was ashamed of, all of the times I didn't show up in my life the right way, all the times I didn't take care of myself, all the times that I was negative to myself, all the times I beat myself up. That's what we need to give each woman that's watching. Forgive yourself.
You just put it in such lovely words, I've also been forgiving myself. And this has been so liberating, so joyful to be free from that shame, from that guilt, and to really, really forgive myself from what I did wrong, or from all those things that I did without knowing what I was really doing.
Exactly.
It's so
At the time, did you
powerful.
really know what you were doing? Did you really know that you weren't being the most amazing mom? You weren't being patient. You weren't being whatever it is. I don't care, ladies, what it was. Did you really know at the time? Were you able to step back and be like, oh, I was a total jerk today. I wasn't a good mom today. I wasn't this. I wasn't. You weren't able to because you were in a cycle of the trauma that your body was reliving every moment of every day, and the confusion, the brain fog, the thinking you're crazy, and all the things that come with it. Of course, you're not going to think clearly and be able to be this incredibly loving, gentle, nurturing mom when you didn't have it yourself, because now, once you do know, you become the generational cycle breaker.
Yes. True forgiveness also comes from this trauma-informed lens.
Yeah.
Because you forgive yourself and you can forgive even other people with this trauma-informed lens.
You can forgive the people who have hurt you.
Yes, you can forgive, really, because now you understand, you have the knowledge, you know why they act the way they act. And
right,
when
it's not an excuse.
yes,
It's not an excuse.
That's nothing is an excuse for the abuse. But when you know that their system works in that way, and they are going to abuse everyone that they have in front of them, and you realize that you were not being abused because of you, that you were being abused because of them, then you can separate yourself from the abuser and just start healing yourself and growing yourself. And whatever happens to that man, it's his life, it's his decision, and I will only put it in God's hands.
Amen.
And yes, and that's what forgiveness is for me.
Yeah, and I think that that's such an important piece for everybody, because you don't have to worry about what they're doing any longer. That's the part of the freedom that's so beautiful, is you don't have to worry about that anymore. You have to worry about taking care of yourself. And
Yes.
part of the reason that you got to where you are is because you've been so worried about taking care of everybody else that you didn't take care of yourself. You didn't hear your little child inside. You didn't hear your inner voice saying, I need you to pay attention. And God did not create us to not heal. God did not create us to not co-regulate with each other. That's why he talks about we're the body of Christ. Because as the body of Christ, what do? We co-regulate together. We come together, we love each other, we take care of each other. We're iron sharpening iron in truth, not in believing the lies, not in believing what we've been told, but in believing in truth, so that we can be set free and we can co-regulate in a healthy way. And I just, wow, I'm really thankful for our conversation. That was beautiful.
Yes, I am really thank you, Jill, for this space. It was a lovely conversation with you, and I really hope that all the women that sees this conversation can have this hope in their hearts. We can heal. We can really heal, and that's the message that I want to give all of you. We can heal, really.
Yeah, just one day at a time. Stay focused on today, ladies. Take our hand, reach out to us. I'll have Clemen's information in my description box here for you to all be able to get. Please reach out. I mean, we have the resources that we all need. And if we were taught these things when we were little, we most likely would not need them today. And so now is the time to take our hands, say yes to yourself, allow yourself to really absorb. Go back and watch if you need to absorb some of the truths that both of us shared so that you can begin this inner healing journey, because that's really what it's all about. Thank you for watching. God bless you all, and I'll see you again next week.